This is actually me with a patient lying on the table taking a picture of them. You can see the wedge shape on this side versus here. And the reason I have a picture of a tire here is this is not that dissimilar to looking at your tires. And if you saw this with your tires, you'd say, wow, I have an alignment problem with my car, or I'm driving like crazy around corners. And I should go and get that checked out and fixed, or else you're going to end up with a blowout. Why am I holding up a shoe instead of wearing shoes? It's because this video is all about our feet and how they affect the kinematic chain up through the ankles, the knees, the hips, and up into the SI joint and low back. This video is specifically designed for someone that's got SI joint pain issues, and maybe they are going to their chiropractor or their physical therapist to get corrected, and they feel like they have to go over and over and over again to get the same adjustment. And they're wondering, why can't my body maintain or hold its balance? I've spent my whole career as a sports chiropractor trying to put myself out of business, trying to help teach people how not to need to come in and see me. And with that, what's really key is to dig deep into what's causing the person's body to get out of balance. So in this video, we're going to give you things that you can check and do at home to figure out if your feet could be a cause of pain in your feet, ankles, knees, hips, low back, and pelvis, including the SI joints. So it is important to understand, first off, our anatomy, that if problems and imbalance and what's called overpronation or collapsing of the arches, we're not only going to see that down here in the feet, but that problem is going to translate up into the calf, into our knee, into the hip, and then up here into the SI joint. So one thing that you can do right now at home is a simple test to see, gosh, do I have overpronation or my arch is collapsing? One thing you can do is feel for some points of tenderness. When our arches are collapsing, we'll get pain on the outside of our calf here. These are called your peroneal or fibularis muscles, and we'll discuss why that is. But if you are overly sensitive in these muscles as you go down them, that could be a sign that you have overpronation. If you are overly sensitive on the inside of your knee joint line, right in here, that could be a sign. If you're tender up here on what are called your greater trochanters, it's the place where the bones of your hips come closest out to the skin on the sides. That would be here on the greater trochanters. Those will be tender in someone that overpronates. And then also, interestingly, kind of right here on the medial scapular border, that's another area because imbalances at the feet, they travel all the way up. A test that you can do to show that your feet and what happens at your feet affects stuff that comes up to the hips is you can put your feet flat. You can try and generate your arch, pulling your arch up like you had a high arch, putting your hands on those greater trochanters, and then take and let your arches flatten out. So we're bringing them up and we're flattening them out. As you do that, you should be able to feel underneath your fingers rotation that's happening here at your greater trochanters as we come in and out like that. You can also see my knees moving in and out. So when my feet and my arches collapse at my medial arch, I'm going to get rotation at my hips. Something else that you can check at home to see if you're having pronation is lateral heel wear. So this is the back of the shoe, looking at the heel and looking at the outside of the heel. If you notice that you're wearing off the outside more than you are the inside, and here you can see how I have a thicker sole there and a thinner sole there. So I'm pronating on this right shoe. This is a picture example of it. This is actually me with a patient lying on the table taking a picture of them. You can see the wedge shape on this side versus here. And the reason I have a picture of a tire here is this is not that dissimilar to looking at your tires. And if you saw this with your tires, you'd say, wow, I have an alignment problem with my car, or I'm driving like crazy around corners, and I should go and get that checked out and fixed, or else you're going to end up with a blowout, right? So you can take and go into your closet and look at your shoes. If you see lateral heel wear, and if you see it really severely, that's an indication that your arches are collapsing. Also, if you see it asymmetrically, so it's really high on one side and on the other foot, it doesn't look as bad, that's even worse because that creates an asymmetry from side to side. Now you might ask, why would I wear out the outside of my shoes if my arches are actually collapsing in? And that has to do with what's called the gait cycle. So when I am walking, I go heel strike, foot flat, and then I toe off of my big toe. When the foot and your body senses that you're collapsing too much in the center of your gait, in the stance phase of your gait, what will happen is you'll come in and the body will bring you more onto the outside edge of that foot. So you'll come in striking the outside edge of your heel. That's part of the reason we get those muscles here, your peroneal or fibularis muscles, that get so tight, is that you're actually coming in with your foot tipped this way instead of coming in with your foot flat. Over time, that also, someone might notice that they either have recurrent ankle sprains or that their foot just ends up kind of sitting like this, like if they're laying down, it'll be kind of tipped like that. So those are things you can look at with your shoes and also how your body's feeling to know if you're having pronation problems. So I've looked in my closet, man, my shoes have pronation. Signs of pronation. I have lateral heel wear. It looks pretty severe and it looks asymmetrical from side to side. I'm feeling these areas like the lateral calf, the medial knee, my greater trochanter, they're all tender. And so now I'm thinking this might really be something that is an imbalance in my body. What you can do, it is always good to work with a medical professional, but I'm going to go over, and so look one up in your area if you don't have one that you're currently working with. A sports chiropractor or a sports physio or physiotherapist would be a great option for something like this. Also a podiatrist, but I'm going to go over what I go over in my clinic so that you can kind of see how we work through this problem. So there are things called orthotics. They come in a lot of different styles, and I'll give you a little background. There are orthotics from what are called flexible orthotics. These ones would be called like semi-rigid, and then there's rigid orthotics. Flexible orthotics is like a Dr. Scholl's. They add a little bit of cushion and comfort to things. They don't really support the arches of your foot, and those are just like walking on a little bit thicker of carpet. Those I don't recommend for this. They're not going to really give lasting benefit. The rigid ones sometimes can help, and I find those are the ones usually that are made by a podiatrist. Those rigid, kind of like a polycarbonate resin, they're really hard. They'll usually cast you in non-weight bearing, so they'll put like a plaster of Paris cast or a foot mold to send to the lab to get those made. Those are amazing if someone has what's called aplastic deformation of their foot, or they've had a really bad injury, broken bones and things like that in their foot. And they need that rigid support. They usually do well with those. Everyone in between those two, well, I don't recommend flexible orthotics for this, but someone that isn't in that class that needs a rigid orthotic usually really does well with a semi-rigid orthotic. These ones are made out of different density of plastic. These ones, so these are by Aline. Another good brand, and I'll talk through this more at the end, but is Superfeet. Superfeet would be kind of, this would be top end, middle. Superfeet are on the over here, but they're still supportive. The question is, how much can you customize them? And then these orthotics have different densities of fiberglass inside, different densities of foam, some leather, so they have different elements that come in to make them work. This type of orthotic, we scan a person with a laser scanner, takes an image of their foot, and then they're actually able to make custom orthotics based off of that scan. So these are called foot levelers. These ones are called Aline orthotics, and with some little wedges like this, and they're different different thickness, we can either put those on the inside or the outside to help someone balance out their pronation or supination if that's happening in the feet. So this has got some element of customizability, the Aline Orthotics. I'll put links to all these down below so you can check them out. I get a question a lot, why do we need to wear an orthotic, right? And I'm the first person to say, man, we were made to not need extra things to get along in life. That being said, there's a few elements that come to play. First of all, most people by the time they're mid-40s or 50s would have been dead throughout human history. Humans are living longer and longer. That's fantastic. But that means that our joints and our muscles, things like our feet, we want them to last us 100 years and be pain-free. So we got to do a few things to make sure we're taking care of them. Second, traditionally, human feet would be wicked strong. All the little intrinsic muscles of your feet, they would be strong because you were walking barefoot on soft surfaces, things like grass, sand, soft dirt. But we've created all these artificially hard surfaces, and so someone is walking around with their feet in shoes all the time. Those muscles have got atrophied, and so their feet just aren't like their feet would have been 100, 200, 500 years ago, where they would have been really strong. In that case, the foot is going to have less support, right? And then don't get me started, but modern footwear is abhorrent in a lot of cases, really squishing down the foot. We see an increase in bunions and all sorts of other problems, hammer toes, things like that. We'll certainly do videos on that in the future. But that also creates a situation where the foot needs support. Let me give you an example of what it looks like when we take and scan someone. So you can see, using one of our laser scanners, what we're looking for in the biomechanics. So with this laser scanner, we're really looking functionally, how does the foot affect the ankle, the knees, the hips. We're running that laser through the what's called the second metatarsal head, and then we've centered the heels in the back. What we're looking for is, you'll notice that the laser goes through the center of mass of my right ankle here, different than it does here, and you'll also notice that my medial malleolus here is closer to this metal pole than here. That's all an indication that I pronate more, or my arch collapses more on this left foot than my right foot. What I know is I had an injury sailing, wave sailing, windsurfing years ago that tore some ligaments in my foot and really predisposed me to having asymmetry in my feet. So you can see that that collapses over more. You can also see that the laser goes through kind of the center of mass of this knee, but here it falls more on the outside. So what happens at the foot and the ankle is going to translate up. And then when I go and do something like a squat, you can see that the laser stays pretty centered here, but on this one it has a tendency to want to drift inward. So you can see that there, right? So when we look at it functionally, we see that it deviates, right? Then we could take something like an Aline orthotic, and we could put those onto the laser scanner. I can step up here, and again, I'm going to center my foot so that the laser is going through the second metatarsal head, and already things look a little bit better. I'm not as close over here to this post, and I just feel a little bit more centered. Also, if you look at what's going on at my knee, that already looks a little better too. Actually, that looks significantly better. You'll also notice that I don't wiggle as much when I'm going down. When we support the arches of the foot, the body just feels more stabilized. It's pretty cool. If I needed more correction, then I could take and pick my heel up and try and test out levels of correction there and see how I did with that and which wedges I would need. You can see that throws me too far out, and so we wouldn't be using that. But this is an example of using a scanner to try and figure out what would be correct for me. Having someone just do trial and error with a pair of A-lines that they order online certainly allows them to balance stuff out too and figure that out. An A-line's got good instructions. How does all this that's going on with your foot, how does that take and affect your SI joints. And the trick is that people these days have poor lateral stability. When people are pretty good with flexors and extensors. So an example, hip flexor, a hip extensor, right? But the muscles that stabilize us in this lateral plane, like our gluteus medius, like our adductors, like our TFL, our iliotibial band, those muscles just don't get much work these days. We don't walk on uneven surfaces. We don't ride horses. We don't do all the things that we used to do that gave us challenges in this lateral plane. And when we go to the gym, we go and work our quads and our hamstrings and our glutes, but most people are reticent to get on that machine and pull their leg across or to push their leg out against a machine. So we get weakness in this lateral plane. When we do, it's all that much more important to stabilize our feet, which will help us feel more balanced in this lateral plane. If we're not balanced, we might find that we pop a hip out like this, that if you are someone that when you stand, you're hanging out in a line waiting at a store, and you find that you do this, just kind of fall over to one side, and then after a little bit you fall over to this side, that is weakness in your gluteus medius muscles, but also weakness in this lateral stabilizing plane. And wearing some orthotic, if it's needed, and you see the patterns that we talked about in your shoes and places of tenderness, then that can really help to provide balance and help you stabilize out your SI joints and the SI joint pain that you might have. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, give it a thumbs up. We'd love it if you'd comment below. Just share something that you learned, a question that you have. If it helped you out, we love hearing that. And then also subscribe to our channel. Make sure notifications are turned on. We're always putting out information to help you put your doctor out of business. The human body should be able to stay and be amazing, but you got to understand a little bit about it. And that's what we love to do on this channel.